Can we do a sound check so I can make sure that everyone can hear me? If you can maybe just put something in the chat box. All right, we'll give everybody about another minute or two, and then we'll get started. Hey, AJ, I think I see you on here. How do I stop this echo? Okay, sounds good. Okay, if everybody can still hear me, if one person could put something in the chat, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, thank you. All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Arthur Leek. Actually, I am an ordained minister. I typically do not go by Reverend Art Leek unless I'm in the ministry setting. And so this morning, for the purpose of this meeting, I'm just going by Art. I just want to let you know right up front, this session is not designed to teach you how to write a grant. The design of this meeting is to take everyone through or walk you through the process that we did at our church in order to be able to secure a grant in order for us to be able to move our worship service from the online environment to the online environment. At any point in time during this session, if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat box. And then I will put my email address in the chat box at the end of the session in case someone wants to reach out to me at a later point. So like most of you, when COVID hit a little over a year ago, we were not in a position at my church to be able to move from an in-person worship service to online. We were not prepared. We are a small church of about 125 members. The majority of our members are senior citizens, and senior citizens I would put in the classification of ages 60 and above. And so most of them were not on technology. Most of them did not have email addresses, did not have, a lot of them did not even have internet access in their homes. So we were trying to figure out how in the world we were going to continue to provide a worship experience for our members, even though in the state of Indiana, we were not allowed to meet in person. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, my apologies. I am situated in the town of Anderson, Indiana, which is about 40 miles north of the city of Indianapolis. Like most of you, we tried our best to keep our congregation together. And so we had a few people who had understood how iPhones worked and utilized the iPhone to do a lot of the streaming in order for us to be able to offer our church a worship experience. But it was not working. It was not functioning. So basically what we ended up doing is we ended up temporarily moving outdoors and just having an outdoor service, but not doing any type of streaming. We were not alone. A couple of churches in the greater Indianapolis area saw that there was a need in the community for churches to be able to make a transition from face-to-face to the automated process, but did not have an idea or did not have any way to be able to do it because of the finances. However, in Indianapolis, we are fortunate in the fact that we have one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, headquarters there, by the name of Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly has a number of different foundations, and one of their foundations that they have is called the Lilly Endowment. The Lilly Endowment was created in 1937, and its goal was to effect a commitment to causes of community development, education, and religion, and it remains the center of a lot of grant making today. One of the arms of the Lilly Endowment is an organization called the Center for Congregation, which helps Indiana congregations through no-cost consulting, low-cost education events, as well as grants. So one of the leading pastors in Indianapolis approached the Center for Congregations and asked them if there was a way that they could possibly help churches figure out how in the world we were going to move from face-to-face to online. And since the center offers resource grants and resource consulting, when social distancing went to effect, they thought, well, this is an effective way for us to work with churches to help them to remain together, even especially those churches that had limited technology. The center saw the local need set that we had in the greater Indianapolis area, and they launched what was called the Connect Through Tech Grant Program. Lilly Endowment is an arm of the, I'm sorry, I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, but forgive me, Corey, it's Lilly, Lilly. So in March of 2020, the Center for Congregations announced a Connect Through Tech grant for any church in the state of Indiana. Unfortunately, when the grant was announced, it was limited strictly to congregations in the state of Indiana. And over 6,000 churches applied for grant money. And it was the maximum amount of money that a church could apply for through this grant was $5,000. And then your church had to match 10% of what you asked for. So you could get a maximum of $5,000 from the grant, and then your church had to chip in an additional $1,000, which basically gave you a grant of $6,000 that you had available to to purchase technology equipment. We applied for the grant in April. And when I took a look at what it was that we needed to purchase in order for us to be able to go online, we basically needed everything. So I put in a request for about $4,600. And that $4,600, I asked for to move from an analog digital soundboard to from an analog soundboard to a digital soundboard. I put a request in for a PTZ camera, as well as software to be able to support our streaming, which we ended up going with vMix. Some new microphones, as well as some additional dollars in order to be able to upgrade our internet connection. We were still on, at that time, we were still on dial-up. So there was no way in the world that we were going to be able to stream effectively without having any buffering or any lag, unless we move from dial-up to Wi-Fi or fiber. And so the grant money enabled us to be able to do that. When we put in a grant, it took 3 months before we finally got approval to purchase equipment. But once we found out that we were approved for the grant, we were able to use our existing funds to be able to make the purchase and then reimburse our church when the grant dollars came in. The Lilly Endowment, or the Connect Through Tech grant in the state of Indiana, awarded over $13 million to 5,000 different churches. And in my county alone, over 70 churches applied for the grant, and all 70 of the churches were approved. With all of that equipment, the cost was under $6,000. Yes, it was. Yes. The digital soundboard that we bought was a Behringer X32 compact, and that only cost, I caught it on sale. I paid about $1,300 for the digital soundboard. The PTZ camera that I purchased was an additional $1,300. vMix, I believe at the time when I bought it, the subscription was about $340. A couple of microphones, and I think it was an additional $1,000 that we spent in order to be able to upgrade, in order to upgrade our Wi-Fi. So yes, for under $6,000, we were able to purchase a digital soundboard, one PTZ camera, a subscription to vMix. I'm sorry, I also bought a Behringer audio interface, vMix, and like I said, $1,000 to upgrade our Wi-Fi. Now, I am also the treasurer for our church. So I pretty much manage the finances. So we were able to, if we ran over the 6,000, we were able to rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. But we were able to complete this project under $6,000. So streaming is here to stay. And a lot of churches are still trying to figure out how they're going to upgrade their technology. Because as we continue to grow and as we continue to affect our streaming, we're finding out, especially on this conference, that there are a number of different pieces of technology that we can purchase in order to be much more effective. And so one of the things that I think we should be doing, especially for those of us that are medium to small size churches, is we need to begin to continue to look around for grant opportunities. And so I mentioned to you that the Center for Congregations in Indianapolis, when they did the the tech grant, they did the initial call for just Indiana churches. However, in order for you can, any church in the country can apply for a resource grant through the Center for Congregations. So if you just search on the Google Center for Congregations in Indiana, you'll come to their website and you'll see that they do offer a resource grant. And I believe that resource grant is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $15,000. I don't know what the stipulations are for the money that you apply with this resource grant, but certainly I would encourage those of you who are on this this Zoom chat to take a look at the resource grants that they still have that you can apply for. The other thing that I would encourage you to do, for those of you that are part of a denomination, is to reach out to your headquarters and ask them if there are any grants that might be available through your denomination. I know, for example, I'm not United Methodist, but in preparing for this presentation, I did a Google search, and the United Methodist Church came up as a denomination that does offer technology grants to its members. I know the Catholic churches do the same thing, and there are a number of other nonprofit organizations out there that do offer technology grants to churches. So as you begin to start thinking about how it is that you're going to expand your technology, or if there's a new piece of equipment that you're interested in purchasing that you think might be beneficial to allow your congregation to be able to grow its online presence, I would encourage you to research and talk to individuals to see what possible grants might be available in your local community that you might be able to apply for. So for example, in my county here in Madison County in Indiana, we have a county foundation called the Madison County Foundation. We are eligible, if we so choose, to apply to them for additional funds to be able to expand our technology. But we, with the grant that we receive from the Center for Congregations, it's not a need for us to do, but I raise that to say that there are organizations out there that each of you should be thinking about looking towards to be able to help you fund your technology. Another creative way for you to try to raise funds for technology is through Facebook. Now, probably, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I have a friend of mine who is on a building committee for his church in Indianapolis. And during his birthday, he put an announcement out on Facebook that said, in honor of his birthday, I'm encouraging all of my friends and colleagues to donate $5, $10, or whatever towards my church's church new building. He told me last week when I met with him that through that appeal on Facebook for his birthday, he raised over $2,000. Now, he thought perhaps maybe Facebook would not give him all of that money, but when he checked with his finance director, Facebook cut a check for $2,000 that went towards his church's new building. And so, you might want to talk to your pastor or your finance chairman at your local congregation. And if you've got something special coming up, you might want to try to do a direct appeal on Facebook in honor of that special occasion for your friends, your colleagues, your Facebook friends to donate $5 or $10 towards that project through Facebook. And then Facebook will, in fact, honor that request and will send your church however much money is raised in order to be able to accomplish whatever it is that you're hoping to do. All right, I'm going to stop here and see if there are any questions that anybody might have. or if there's something that you want to share, I'll be more than happy to read your comments and share with the rest of the group. And if I don't hear anything in a few minutes, I'll share a couple of more things. Okay, seeing nothing? Okay, so want to talk to you, just kind of share with you how some of the grant recipients here in the state of Indiana were able to use the Connect Through Tech grants from the Center for Congregations. A number of church recipients used. How long did it take for you to get the Eli Lilly grant? I applied for the grant in April. We found out about the grant in March. I applied for the grant in April, and we were notified around the end of May that we were approved for the grant. Once we were approved for the grant, we got authorization to go ahead and make our purchases, even though they had not cut a check. They gave us permission, if we had the funds in our budget, to go ahead and make our purchases. And then when the check was cut, we were able to take that check and reimburse our church budget. So it took roughly about 2.5 months from the time that we applied for the grant to when we actually received our check. Okay. All right. All right, so the name of the organization in Indiana is Center for Congregations. They are part of the Lilly Endowment. And as I mentioned before, the Center for Congregations does offer research grants throughout the year. And I believe their resource grants are maxed at about $15,000. Okay, so a number of churches use their grant money to do a series of educational events that help to maximize, all of the grant participants were required to go through a series of workshops that the Center for Congregations gave. Go through a workshop in order to be able to talk about and see how we were to use and purchase the technology that we received from our funds. It also walked us through how to apply for the grant. And one of the questions is, what documents did you have to put together to file? It was really pretty simple. They asked a series of questions. The only thing that we had to prove was that we were a legitimate church. So we had to provide them our 501c3 number. We had to provide them our federal ID number. And by the way, a number of churches were disqualified for applying for the grant because they did not have a 501c3 and they did not have a federal ID tax number. So that was a qualification. Your senior pastor had to approve the grant, as well as whoever was the board of your whatever civilian or laity head that you have at your church. Other than that, we basically just had to tell them why we needed or wanted the grant money. So basically, I talked about the fact that we were an aged congregation, and that we needed to start from scratch, and in order for us to be able to keep our congregation together. They asked you in the initial proposal to list all of the equipment that you were interested in purchasing, as well as what the cost was. And that was how they were able to tally the amount of money that you would be getting for the grant. However, the interesting thing was, after you applied for the grant, and once the grant was approved, you were authorized to change your purchase agreement. So if I decided that, for example, there was something more important for me to purchase with that grant money than, say, for example, moving from an analog soundboard to a digital soundboard, they gave us permission to do that. So you were not locked into what you told them in the initial request that you were going to use the funds for, as long as the money that you use was used towards advancing your technology. However, everything that I put in our request, we actually did use the funds for. There were some organizations that basically use their funds to expand technology within their community. I know of one church that actually bought a series of tablets that the church owned, and any member of their congregation who did not have a tablet, they were able to sign those tablets out from their church in order to be able to have technology. Another church actually built a Wi-Fi infrastructure for the local community, so that families within a specific area around that church would have Wi-Fi access to the church's network in order to be able to not only be able to stream when the church was doing their church services, but would also allow those children in that particular community, because remember, schools were shut down as well, and a lot of families, especially in low-income communities, did not have solid Wi-Fi. So a couple of churches built Wi-Fi infrastructure for a geographical area within their neighborhood, to allow kids who did not have Wi-Fi connection to have the ability to have Wi-Fi capability. Now, my biggest concern when we spent the money was accountability, because I reached out to the Center for Congregations about 7 months after we expended the money to ask them when were they expecting a final closeout report. And they kept telling me, well, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Well, we didn't get a request for a closeout on the report until the day before yesterday, when my pastor called me and said he was filling out the closeout report. So it took over a year for us to be able to consolidate to let the Center for Congregational Study, Congregations Church, to understand what it was that we did with the funds. And in the closeout on the report, the only question they asked us was, besides accountability for the funds that we spent, was that if we had any money left over, they had encouraged us to spend it before we closed the report out. So over this year, we started with seed money of $5,000. And as I said, we purchased a PTZ camera, a soundboard, an audio interface, vMix, upgraded our internet capabilities. And now we have 3 PTZ cameras. We've got an ATEM Mini Pro ISO. We also have two lighting or spotlights that we have been able to put into our budget to really enhance our communication. So we're at a point now, because of the $5,000 seed money that we received for this grant, we feel that we are in much better shape to be able to continue to provide technology online because of the grant money that we received through the Lilly Endowment. Any other questions or anything else anybody want to know about? Just an FYI, the Indiana, the Center for Congregations here in Indiana, like I said, we are fortunate that they are here because they provide all of their resources that they provide to churches are for free. And one of the things that they also offer, and I would ask those of you who are in the United States to reach out to your pastor, to have your pastor check with the Center for Congregations, because they also offer grant money for pastors to take sabbaticals. I know a number of pastors who have taken sabbaticals, and their sabbaticals were paid for by the Center for Congregations. They also offer free consulting. They offer free seminars and workshops throughout the year. So again, I would encourage you to visit their website to see what types of workshops and seminars that they have going on, because there's a lot of things that they offer that can enhance your individual congregations. Are there grant programs nationwide to fill the gap? Yes, correct. Yes, there are. As I mentioned before, I know for a fact that the United Methodist Church offers technology grants, because in doing a Google search for some additional information for this session, I did notice that the United Methodist Church had a website where their members could apply for grants. The Catholic Church, a number of the archdioceses within the Catholic Church offers grant money for churches to improve their technology. And unfortunately, I don't have the website, but I will find the website and I'll stick it out on the For Me eMissionary website. I did run across a website that listed about 25 or 30 other nonprofit organizations that offer churches the ability to apply for technology grants through them as well. And I'll get that listed sometime before the weekend is out. All right. As I mentioned to you earlier, I'm not a grant writer. I wrote the grant myself. It was not very difficult. It was really 4 questions that I had to answer, and I basically just did 2 paragraphs for each of the 4 questions that I had to answer. Some grants, please know, are very complicated to write. So if you don't have a grant writer in your church, there may be some grants that you'll have to seek out grant writers in order to be able to meet the needs of those organizations. However, the beauty of writing some grants, if you have to hire a grant writer to file a grant proposal for you, you can build the cost of that grant writer's, whatever that grant writer charges, you can build the cost of that grant writer into your proposal. For the Center for Congregations, in order to get their grant money, yes, we had to be a 501c3. And if you were not a 501c3, you were disqualified from being able to apply for the grant. So Brandon, if your church is not 501c3, you may want to talk to your leadership about the possibility of applying to become a 501c3, because I can almost guarantee you that most grant opportunities that are out there are probably going to, especially if a church is asking for money, is probably going to be asking if you are 501c3, because they're going to want to make sure that whatever monies they're dispersing are going to legitimate organizations. So yes, that was a good question. So thank you. So whatever, the other thing that I will say as it relates to the grant opportunities that we had here in the state of Indiana, the Center for Congregations did not limit these grant opportunities just to Christian churches. If you were a synagogue or a mosque, you were eligible to apply for this grant. So they did not limit the grant to Christian churches. They opened the grant opportunities to all faiths and to all types of church denominations. Okay, so if you take nothing else away from this session this morning, what I would hope that you would take away is, first of all, if you are part of a denominational or an organization, reach out to your denomination or your church organization to see whether or not they have opportunities for you to apply for grants to be able to purchase new equipment. Reach out, do a research on Google for grant opportunities. Like I said, there are a ton of them are available. Look in your surrounding areas. If you are in a county that has a grant foundation, local hospitals, things of that nature, you'll be surprised what opportunities that you will find out there if you or a member of your congregation take the time to do some research. I think you'll find that you can fund your projects by writing a grant. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Let me give you a little bit of my background, and I should have done this earlier. I've been in ministry now for a little over 40 years. My passion is media. I actually I lead the media team at my church. Up until COVID, our ministry team basically consisted of, front house of sound, front house of sound, the soundboard. Now we have worked to put together a team that works not only with sound, but we've got a team that works with the lighting. We have a team now that is working with the streaming aspect of it as well. My undergraduate degree when I was in college was radio and television. And so this last year actually gave me the opportunity to go back to my original passion, which was video and streaming. I actually spent 39 years in the Army. 10 of those 39 years, I was actually in broadcasting for the Army. So it was very easy for me to make the transition to working with my local church to get us up and running because of the background that I had with my college experience and my years in the Army. Carl, you can file for Eli Grilly grant yearly, correct? Yes. Yes, Lilly grants or Center for Congregation grants, yes, those grants are pretty much year round. Okay. Good question, thank you. Okay. All right, well, if there's no other questions, I will give you some of your time back. I believe the next session starts at 11 o'clock. If you want to get in touch with me, here is my email address. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions, or if I can send you some resources or anything that to give you to take a look at the grant proposal that we put together, I'd be more than happy to share that with you. Brandon's question is, what is needed to apply for 501c3? Basically, to apply for 501c3, you really just, in the state of Indiana, you go through the Secretary of State's office. You go through the Secretary of State's office, you file some paperwork. They give you a 501c3, and then you get a federal tax ID number. My recommendation would be for you to find an attorney that handles all of that, or if you've got somebody in your church that understands that type of paperwork. It is not very complicated, and it doesn't cost money at all. Okay. All right. Again, I want to thank everybody for taking some time out to listen to how we were able to make the transition from face-to-face to online. And hopefully I shared some things that you could take back to your local congregations to think about, to find some creative ways to be able to fund your technology or increase the technology that you already have. Blessings to all of you. And we'll see you in some of the other sessions a little bit later on throughout the weekend. Thanks.